Brian, stop the tape.
Okay, Mike. Oh, wait. Rewind that scene, please.
Rewind that scene.
Rewind that scene.
Rewind that scene.
Rewind that scene.
I'm Mike Rizzo.
And I'm Brian Bonds.
This is the Rewind That Scene podcast by Bobo Touch, which is us.
Yes.
Duo from Brooklyn Bay Ridge.
We grew up together.
And we love each other.
Yeah.
So this is a podcast where we go back in time and relive our favorite movies from the 80s, 90s, and sometimes current movies.
Yeah. And it really, we want to know what was going on the set, with the crew, with the cast, with the right people. I mean, listen, everybody that is working on these productions has a story. And
Exactly.
everybody on these productions matter. So
Yeah.
it's amazing. We're learning so much through this podcast.
Yeah, the main thing is to learn about what they went through, how they got there, valuable insights that they can share, and some fun trivia while making the movie.
Exactly.
And we always try to pick our favorite movies and things that left an impact on us and an impact on the world, too.
And today we have a very special guest today
Mhm.
from an incredible film that I think really moved the needle in the sort of indie cult world and that vibe.
Very cult classic.
Yes, today's film is The Boondock Saints.
1999. Early Norman Reedus.
Yes.
Willem Dafoe, Sean Patrick Flannery.
Yes.
We can't forget about Billy Connolly.
Oh my God.
The master.
Best.
Yes. I mean, Troy, written and directed by Troy Duffy, which I think we were really intrigued by because apparently it was like an overnight sensation in a sense where he sold the script. He was kind of an unknown director, unknown writer.
And there's a lot of great,
Yeah.
So really the story arc here, and this film in particular, it was around the same time I feel like, Do the Right Thing came out, then Clerks, and these indie films, and then and this one then dropped, like at the end of that era of 90s cinema.
Yeah.
I think Orson showed me this film in Tall Timbers
Right,
as well, or,
right.
and it was like, what the, like, it just, my mind kept like, the story is like, oh, like it's like Pandora's box.
I know. Like these two brothers who feel like they have the right to kill all these like mobsters in
They're
South
like the
Boston.
Batman
Yeah,
of
they're like the Batman of
Irish
it all.
Batman bar drinker.
It's so good. It's so good. I think we watched it like 30 times easily. We told everyone about it to watch it. Obsessed. So many funny moments. The Willem Dafoe character as like the flamboyant detective.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, obviously, like things don't age well, but at the time it was like, holy crap. Like we couldn't believe.
It was very sort of
Couldn't believe
David
it.
Lynch-esque.
Yeah,
where,
like
you
so
had
good. So good.
these great character actors really exercise there, right? And I mean, they've all went on to do great things.
Yeah, and Carlo, who plays the Yakavetta boss, just was always one of the guys.
Head
The head guy was always the one guy that we were like, we want to pick that guy's brain.
Yeah,
so-
definitely powerful dude. Never want to be like trapped in a room with him.
Yeah.
At least that character.
Just like everything about him is so badass and tough. So
Yeah.
it's an honor. Let's bring him on, right?
Let's do it. You're known for playing a bad guy, and we love bad guys. And ultimately, like, what was it like into getting to this role? Not a lot of people could pull off badass, And
Legitimate.
How did you get your hands on the script? Did you have any idea what this film was going to be like? And I know you've done so many films since then, but ultimately, like, you really do have this presence in this film. So just like love to learn that whole experience.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that Boondock is the gift that keeps on giving. And we can go into the reasons for that, the reasons why it became such a phenomenal cult hit. It was my sister is or rather was, we just recently retired, a French teacher in a rather shishi school in Ohio. And they regularly have like symposiums about film and the like in this school. And at the time, I had two nephews and a niece in that same school. And, they voted a number of times about what their favorite film was. And they voted more than once that Boondock was their all-time favorite film.
I love it.
We're talking about high school kids, and they just loved the film. There's a number of reasons why I think it became the cult hit that it did. But before talking about that, let me tell you about how the whole thing went down. So I used to live in Toronto. That's where I started acting. I am very suspiciously Canadian, even though I don't know. I certainly don't sound it. But I'm a very proud Canadian. I have a Canadian passport. They actually gave me one. I'm also very proud to be an American. They gave me an American passport too. Anyway, the point is, I was in Canada. I was in Toronto, and one of the casting people there, Tina Gerussi, who was a very big casting person, she called me to an audition for this little independent feature. I didn't know anything about it. I went in and I auditioned for a completely different role. It was for this Irish butcher, I think. Murphy!
Oh, yes, the
Murphy!
butcher scene.
Yes.
Oh,
So
wow.
that role, right? So there was like a lot of... Troy Duffy was in the room. A couple of other people were in the room. They were like, they loved it. And I went home. And I got the call very shortly afterwards that, oh, great, they loved you. You got the part. Excellent. I was
Wow.
very happy, right? Very, very happy. And then a few days later, it was on a weekend, Tina Gerussi phones me at home, which is very unusual. Casting people phoning you at home rarely happens. You know that something either is terrible is going to happen or something really big is going to happen. Anyway, she's like, yeah, hey, Carlo, it's Tina. I'm like, hey, Tina. Yeah, listen, I've been speaking to Troy Duffy, director-producer of Boondock, and he wants to see you for another role. And I'm like, oh, okay. Great. She goes, but he wants to see you today. There's a party that they're having at this massive house they rented in Toronto for all of them to stay, crash at, and party at, right?
Nice.
And she said, he wants to see you then. I'm like, okay, when is it? She goes, well, just go up there whenever you can because the party's going on now. I'm like, really? Okay. So there I am. I'm like, am I going to a party or am I going to audition? So I hedged my bets and I bought a 2-4 of beer.
Yeah.
I arrive at this party and knock on the door. Boom. Troy opens the door. He goes, Carlo, this is Willem Dafoe, Carlo.
Oh,
I'm
my
like,
God.
Okay, all right, okay. He goes, yeah, Carlo. We loved your audition. But this is another role. There's another role, and we need you to read. You need to read for it today. Here are the sides.
Yeah.
We're going to go up to the bedroom, and we're going to record this audition. Right? And I'm like,
Oh, my God.
now you have to understand. I didn't know these guys.
Yeah.
I just met Willem Dafoe. I was, huge fan of the guy. Still am. I'm like, they want to take me up into a bedroom and record an audition, right? I'm like, when I come down from that
Glorious.
bedroom, am I going to be the same man as I was?
Yeah. Probably. Probably not.
It's a life-changing
So we go up
experience.
to the bedroom, and I look at this part. I'm like, okay, so he's the boss. He's Italian, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to play him like an off-the-boat Italian, if
Yeah.
that's cool with you, right? And he's like, yeah, oh yeah, we love it. Troy is a larger-than-life character, right?
Yeah.
And he was so big back then. He was making this movie. He was like, he would just fill a room, right? And so we just recorded the audition. We're just like in the frickin' bedroom, me, Troy, and a couple of other guys, right?
amazing.
And then he was like, oh, yeah, yes. And he says, okay,
Killed it.
let's go downstairs and drink.
In true Boondock Saints fashion.
Absolutely, right?
Everyone's Irish
Everyone's
tonight.
Irish. So that's what we did. I'm like, I'm there. I'm having a good time. I still don't know if I have the role. You never right say, you have it,
Yeah.
Anyway, it turns out I did get the role, and we started filming it. And it's only when we started filming it that I read the script and I saw the scope of the film that I realized that we were onto something. This was going to be a fantastic and unusual event. And Toronto was lucky to be the host, the venue for this film. And, I should also add that, and I think that it speaks also to why the film eventually became as popular as it did. That, the film was budget challenged. As you know, the film, originally was going to be a far greater budget. It was going to be a Miramax production. And it was going to have some A-list names in it, right? Troy was who wrote the script. He sold them the script, and then they bought the script, and then he was like, "I want to direct it." And he said, they went, "Okay, yeah, you can direct it," And he said, "I want to also cast it." And they were like, "No, we got to cast our people." And that was the thing that apparently caused it all to crash with the Weinsteins. And then so then he was left with making this film at like a quarter of the budget at least, right? So Toronto is a cheaper is a cheaper place to shoot, right?
Yeah.
So that's why the film ended up in Toronto, and we were lucky to have it in Toronto, and as a result, I was in it. So then we were shooting it, and it was just a great time because it was like there's a lot of energy on set, and that scene that I do when I'm on the phone and I'm like basically tearing someone a new asshole on the phone.
Yeah.
I literally lifted that from one of the producers, Don Carmody, was outside just earlier in the afternoon, and he was on the phone shouting at someone in the same way, like literally giving this person a new orifice, right? And I was like, "Oh, I'll use that."
That's amazing.
So that's what I did.
And that's actually the "I'll have a Coke" scene, right? It's like so risky and controversial, but that was one of the scenes that Brian and I latched on to being so like memorable and funny because the joke is so crazy.
The joke was crazy. You wouldn't be. I don't know if I would. I don't know if I'd make the same choices today.
Right. It's because it's like so not cool anymore.
It's so not cool anymore. But then at the time that insignificant line, if I can use that word in Zoom space, that line was an ad lib, right? So the original line was "you insignificant little fuck," right? That was the line, and so I was like, I changed it to a emphasis on the C word, and that line became. It's like I think it's in Huffington Post's top 100 movie insults.
Yes. Yes.
I have people coming up to me on the street. If I'm shooting in some town in the US or whatever, some guy will run across the street. "Excuse me. Hi. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to bother you, but you're in Boondock Saints, and
yes.
And my mother is a huge fan of yours, and can you leave her a voicemail with that line?"
Oh, that's so good.
I'm like,
that's
"You want me to say the
That's
insignificant little line to your mother?" And, "Yeah, she loves that line. She loves it."
You might have to say it to our moms after this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's so great. That was an ad lib too. And just vibing on energy too. I mean,
it was just vibing on the energy of the space.
You have such a great presence in this film.
That's great.
And and Troy, to give him credit, was like, "Yeah, Carlo, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Like, guys, what's Carlo going to do?"
What's next? Yeah.
And I think that ultimately that energy, the sort of like lower budget sort of drive. One of the things about having a lower budget, I mean, it's not always a disadvantage because in the right hands, a lower budget means, okay, you've got one job. You've got to use this money to make it good, right?
Yeah.
So in other words, you can't say, "Oh, I can use all the other millions of dollars to make it good." No, I got to use this money to make it good. And somehow at the time, what will happen is you'll come up with that way of doing it. And hopefully that'll feed to everyone else involved in it as well. And I think that's what actually ended up making it such a cult hit. The fact that it flew under the radar because of the budget, because it didn't get wide release. The casting at the time, was for a movie of that nature was, courageous because neither of the leads were like A-list, right? As they were to become. And so it helped the movie. People would discover that film. That's what would happen. Right? They would discover it. They'd be like, "I've discovered a fucking great film."
I feel like we kept hearing about, I mean, we were like, in high school as well, showing our age, but we kept hearing about it years and years after, like, "You guys got to see this movie I just discovered." Like, we already saw it, but like, it just kept getting talked about in our circle.
Yeah.
Like, "You got to see this movie."
What's also hilarious about the movie is that I once read this article from this guy who plainly had a bone to pick. I don't know why. He felt like he needed to vent, but he wrote this article about the ridiculous nature of Boondock Saints because, he was like, it's got plot holes, it's got this, it's got that. But his main issue was that more has been written about Boondock Saints as a movie than most juggernaut Oscar-winning films. Like people
Right, I could see that.
Theses, they've written shit on it, and he's going on and on and on about how ridiculous it is that this movie has had so much attention. And then, to his credit, he catches himself. He's like, "Oh shit! I just blew past 2,000 words, and I'm still writing about this movie." Right?
He calls himself out.
I love
It's
that.
good.
Ultimately, I could not have imagined when I went into audition for The Butcher that things would turn out the way they turned out. But I'm so happy that I was in it. And like we said, obviously certain scenes you can't, certain scenes you will not be able to do the same way as we did them. It's just times have changed. And I think you'd be really, I don't know, I think you'd just be trying to tear at an unnecessary envelope to shoot them in the same way, use the same language, right?
Yeah.
And then of course, other people who were in those scenes, became pariahs. But I'm so glad I was in it, and I'm so glad that it had an effect on people. The big shame about it was that to get the movie made, Troy had to give up a lot, right? And I think that the original film, not the sequel, the original film became so popular, but I didn't think it rendered a huge amount to Troy financially. And it wasn't until they made the sequel that he got a decent paycheck.
Yeah.
I believe. Now, this is what he told me. We were drinking at the time, so he may have been exaggerating. It's a great, great event to be in. And, I was just in Sweden shooting a really big deal video game, right?
Nice.
Recently, there's been a lot of mocap.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I have like a major involvement in Assassin's Creed. So much fun. It's like shooting mocap is like doing theater in the round because you're free. You've got all these cameras around you. You're dressed in this weird suit. And you've got totally everything's in your head. But then when you finally see the scene, you go like, wow, okay, yeah, I had to act the shit out of that. But we somehow got something. Anyway, this other thing I just did in Sweden, I can't tell you what it is because I will be put in video game prison if I do.
Oh, yeah.
NDA world.
So, but I'm on set. One of the guys, also from the US, who's on set with me, there in Stockholm, we're just riffing about stuff as you do in between shots, try and keep your energy up. And he goes, he gives me that line. He gives me that line. He's like, I really felt like an insignificant little fuck, right? and I went, I just presumed he knew. And I said, that was an ad lib, right? And he looked at me and he's like, wait, that was you?
Oh,
you were in that film?
Yes.
And this guy who's saying this to me is like a big deal in that world, right?
Yeah,
he's like,
yeah.
And he's like, oh my God, you were in that film. He says, I'm speechless. I'm speechless. It was like,
yes.
it's just,
That's
I think for
amazing.
some people, it really hit home. And they just loved it. They loved it, and they continue to love it.
That's awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
I love the scene when you talk to the old man, when you bring out Al Duke.
Yeah. So
Man,
that he
powerful.
was brought up from, they brought him up. He's actually blind, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
in real life?
In
oh,
real
wow.
life, he was actually blind.
Oh, my God.
He lives in New York.
Oh, yeah. Because it's just such like a pivotal moment because it's like, this is like your power play move,
Yes.
And the way they introduce Billy Connolly is just like so epic and beautiful.
Listen, I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up in and out of England, and
Yeah.
Billy Connolly, holy shit, you don't get
Yeah.
bigger than
Right.
that, And Billy Connolly
Yeah.
came on set, and what happened was there was this fantastic scene that started off. Oh no, it was like in the courtroom.
Oh, yes. The ending.
When the brothers rush in and Billy Connolly rushes in and they take the judge and they literally throw him down on the ground, right? And so there was a guy cast as the judge. This guy was like definitely a physical guy. He was like going on about how, he was a black belt and how, normally what he did was stunts and stuff like that. And Billy Connolly and the boys rush in, they grab him, and he's like, "Right, you bastard!" And and he throws him to the ground, and the guy trips and breaks his leg.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And he's a stunt guy? What the?
So Billy Connolly's like, "Oh fuck. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean, I'm so sorry.
Oh my God.
I'm so fucking sorry. and I didn't mean it." And so we had to stop shooting
Oh my
and then
God.
reconvene a few days later with another judge.
Oh my God.
That's insane.
And it was like Judge 2.0. It was, 2.0 wasn't a saying at the time. This was the 90s still.
Yeah.
No one knew what 2.0 was back then.
Man, I feel bad for that dude saying he was the judge who got laid out by Billy Connolly in real life.
It was like, it's hilarious because none of us saw it coming. And you're in the middle of a scene and suddenly you're like, should we
Like,
stop?
is this acting? Is he really hurt?
I think he's really hurt.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But Billy Connolly is like an ever-ready battery.
Yeah.
He's got, and he basically said that the reason why he had to leave England, is that people would just follow him down the street, quoting him, quoting, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised because the guy is a stream of, he just goes on and on and on and on. He's like, you give him one word, he's like, "Oh, fuck. Airplanes. Oh, why did they do that? The seats. Why?" It's like, and he'll go on and on and on. And you're just listening to it. It's very funny. It's super funny. But yeah, very glad that I worked with him. Super glad that I worked with him. Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome. And, what are you excited about right now that you're working on too? I feel that there's so much going on in the world and you've really built such a great body of work over time.
Yeah,
And,
I just finished what I think is going to be a really great show. It's Matt Dillon, Patricia Arquette are the leads, and Jay Roach is the director and one of the producers.
Nice.
It's called High Desert. It's very, I think, super funny, super dark. I think it's going to be a great event. I think 8 episodes. It'll be on Apple TV.
Hell yeah.
There's a very funny film with Kevin Hart that's just about to come out. It's called Me Time, where I play a polyamorous. I play the same Italian guy, except I'm not a mobster, and I like to, and I'm polyamorous. Right?
Yes.
Even better. I love it.
I think that's a Netflix deal.
Sweet.
Yay, Netflix.
Awesome.
And Assassin's Creed is still going strong.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm really grateful for it. I think that when the pandemic first hit, I finished my last day in Montreal on Assassin's Creed, March 13th of 2020. That was my last day of work. And I don't know if you remember, it was a Friday, 13th. And that was the last, we thought the world shut down and would never reopen again.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
In March 13th, 2020. Honestly, I came home and I said to my wife, we both had other work coming up, cancelled. She had a pilot she was about to shoot, cancelled. And we were like, okay, we're completely fucked here. So let's just batten down the hatches and resist doing what most people in LA did, which was for some reason go out and buy firearms.
Right.
Oh
my God.
I know. But then what happened was it was almost as if the nature of the business, of the industry, just literally forced its way through because there was so much great stuff shot during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And shot with all kinds of obstacles because every time somebody tested positive, you'd have to stop, which, of course, added to the budget, added to...
more time and more days and stuff, right? Yeah.
But a lot of great stuff was shot during the pandemic, and I'm super happy to report that they included me in some of it. That's very nice of them.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Carlo, the Yakavetta boss, baby.
Yes. Wow, what a story, on the whole kind of casting and,
Yeah.
showing
that's-
up with a 6-pack of beer and you're like, I gotta
I
go
mean,
audition, meeting Willem Dafoe
that's
for the first
nerve-wracking.
time. Holy shit.
I mean, you're essentially being put on the spot for an audition. You know, he kind of knew he was going to audition,
It's true.
but
I mean,
you don't know what you're getting into.
yeah, and
Put on the spot like that.
totally, it's essentially like getting put on the spot for an audition. You know how we like to rewind that shit.
Yeah, baby.
But also, this is like the crazy thing was like with the budget, like, and these
Yeah,
actors,
I know.
and having a good time. He's like, oh, okay, I just auditioned, I drank, did I get the role? I'm drinking with
Yeah.
these crew, and I think also the fact that there must have been so much stressful situations, Riz,
Yeah.
that Troy Duffy, navigated that, and the actors are just sick in this.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, even though I know he like burned a bridge, I think it's kind of he had a vision. He wanted to do the casting. He wanted to do all of it. He had the whole thing
Yeah,
mapped out, and like I don't know, I kind of respect that. Sticking to your vision and sticking to your people.
yeah.
Which is ultimately how Carlo got the job as well. They had to film it in Toronto.
Yeah, he seems like a very hands-on
it's
person.
so good,
and
yeah.
Carlo too, really, I think dialed into the script, the character.
Yes,
how should I be like this? And I think, yeah, I mean, I didn't even know I just was like, this guy is from Italy.
Yeah. I love the off the boat, like that accent. Like he is so
Great.
off the boat Italian. Like I would never think he had not that accent.
Yeah, there's a lot of really amazing special moments at cinema. I think of this time in the '90s, and this film definitely encapsulates that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Carlo, for coming on the show. And
Yes.
definitely rewatch this movie, The Boondock Saints, Troy Duffy, 1999. Beautiful cinema.
Go grab a toilet and drop it off.
Exactly, right onto a Russian guy's head.
Go throw
bald
some
head.
coins on some dead guy's eye.
Yeah, follow us on social media at Bobo Touch. We're getting real wild on there. And thank you guys. Until the next one.
Santa Mesa Andrea.